Hello right bags, it's Jade Plays Games. Welcome to a special Ark Survival Evolved video. If you don't know, the Ark modding competition has now closed and the winners have been announced. I'm going to go through the winners for you and then we're going to talk a little bit about the possibility of these mods coming to console. It's one of the biggest topics over the last 18 months for Xbox and PS4 fans, whether or not we'll ever see these mods on console. I have told you quite a few times and I've shown you proof and reasoning why Wildcard aren't necessarily focusing on mods anymore for console, and why we won't ever see anything like Skyrim or Fallout mods on Ark. Now I do this because I know there's a lot of tubers out there that do a lot of clickbait, and they definitely will string you along and try and tell you that mods are going to be coming to console, or wouldn't it be amazing if these guys come along. But the simple truth is that Wildcard have got other priorities and I want to talk about that. So we're going to go through the positives because it's a lot of hard work goes into these mods, and I really want to show you guys the winners. I'm going to give you my opinion on the mods as well though, and we'll talk about the mods in general, what I think from someone that plays on PC but also mostly plays on Xbox and PS4. So if you don't know, the modding contest is different from sponsored mods. They're two different things. I'll go through them both. But the contest has been the one that kick-started the real modding community on Ark. Way back when the centre map won it, and it meant the creator of that mod eventually went to work for Wildcard. In fact, every mod that has been made an official mod, like the centre map, Primitive Plus and Ragnarok, the developers have all ended up working for Studio Wildcard. So it's a real achievement for Valguero, the map, to win this, and it means that maybe Neketis and Buttman have a real chance at progressing their career, maybe going into game development full time if it's something they've not been doing. So big shout out to them, they've won first prize. I don't want to show too much of this trailer off because it's been made by a content creator, so go and watch it for yourselves. I'll leave the link in the description box down below. Fantastic little trailer, and the map does look pretty, it looks pretty unique, got loads of different diverse biomes, you know, really slick, and kind of what you expect now from modders, really improving on the maps that are already in the base game. Then second place is Automated Ark by Blitzfire 911. I've been wanting to play a factory game for a while now. I fancy playing like a simulation style thing, and I didn't know I could have it in Ark. Apparently this means you have to build your own sort of manufacturing depot, and it just makes creating and resourcing certain things a little bit easier. It doesn't make it over cheaty, it just means you've got to work hard to get there, and then hopefully it can make your life a little bit easier. So that is one second prize. Third prize is Gunsmoke, a special custom map that has really unique features. I do believe they don't have flyers on it, correct me if I'm wrong on this, and it is a server you have to join. I don't think you can just download the map and play the map as you want on a single player world or whatever. You have to join it as part of this roleplay server where it's Western themed. They've got their own custom buildings put into it, they've got all sorts of things that add and make the map really unique and their own. So Gunsmoke has won and it's third prize. Fourth place is Primal Fear. Now I told you guys a few weeks ago I was worried this was going to win purely based on votes, and while you might think that's the whole point of a competition, I was really genuinely concerned that lots of people were watching DMAC play this, and so his fans were just voting for this. Maybe it wasn't necessarily the best mod. Not taking anything away or disrespecting Picken38, I do believe he's worked fantastically hard on this mod over the last few years. It's a complete overhaul mod, it adds and changes features for the creatures, gives them new attacks, loads of stuff, and obviously it got loads of votes. It's really well received on Steam too, but I just felt that there maybe needs to be a look at all the other mods, and some people might not even know about the other mods because the big YouTubers always cover the most sort of flashy mods. But Wildcard decides who won this, not just by how many votes it got, but how technical it is, how maybe easy it could be to implement into the main game, and also how much, you know, work would be required even just to get it up and running. And so we run into the first problem, and first thing I want you guys to help me out with. Out of the three mods we have on console, the centre map, Primitive Plus and Ragnarok, two of them are maps, and we've got another map now taking first place. As much as these maps are fantastic, as much as people put a lot of work into them, I do feel that sometimes they're not necessarily, I think, probably the best thing. I think if we want mods to really change the way you play your game, it'd be interesting to get different style mods. So even though I just said I didn't want it winning because it maybe wasn't the best mod, maybe Primal Fear is the best mod because it really changes up the gameplay aspects. Or something like Gunsmoke, where it's got its own custom map, but it's also got really added custom pieces like building pieces, and it's changing the way you play the game and maybe not having flyers in it. Or even the Automated Ark, something like that. I basically want a mod that's going to actually change the game and not just be another map. I feel that it's an easy, quick win for Wildcard if they make them into maps because they're the easiest to work on and produce. It's fun exploring a new map, but Ragnarok was pretty big and I don't think maps are the way forward. I think we need to see more additions that change and mix up the gameplay, like Primitive Plus or even Structures Plus. We all want Structures Plus to come to console, we all want that to be made an official mod. It seems that has been put on hiatus. I've told you guys and kept you informed, that won't be worked on now until well after Christmas, if at all. Wildcard have strung us along. It was announced last year at TwitchCon that they would be doing S Plus tentatively. They didn't say straight away, but they said it was on their radar and they'll be looking to implement it. A year later and we got confirmation that it was going to be delayed even more, and it would be something that would maybe come in after Extinction. So what I'm trying to do is dampen down a little bit of hype. I know there's going to be YouTubers out there that are going to be promoting this news as that it's going to come to console, that we're going to see these mods come to Xbox and PS4. Oh my god. I've shown you guys over the last 18 months many times that mods just won't be appearing like they will be. If you're expecting Fallout and Bethesda Skyrim style mods on your console, it's just way too much work, effort and time. And it's not down to the developers, it's also down to the people that make the consoles. Bethesda had to spend millions getting their modded program sorted so they could fix it and add it to consoles, and other games just don't have that kind of resource. Jeremy Stieglitz, the creator of ARK, and Jesse done an interview a while ago now, but it stresses how they thought things went with mods. I wish there was a better pipeline for console mods, says Jeremy. Like lighting and stuff in Bethesda's Fallout, it's really tough. They have to build an entire infrastructure themselves to distribute and maintain. It'll be interesting if the platform holder themselves, Microsoft and Sony, could build more infrastructure to natively support that. Microsoft are trying to do that, says Jesse, another co-creator of ARK Survival Evolved, who incidentally used to work for Microsoft. I do believe he was part or helping in charge of the Microsoft Lens project. I think all of us as developers want to enable that middle ground between a hobbyist and a professional game developer. There's a lot of people who are really talented and they don't have a job that lets them put either their passion into it or show their talent. So modding is a good way to go. So clearly there are big huge obstacles in place getting them style mods on console. The best we can hope for is that maybe one of these mods gets turned into an official mod and Wildcard just basically port it over. It becomes part of the base game and they do what they did with the Center Map, Primitive Plus and Ragnarok, and they port it to Xbox One and the PS4. So you'd be maybe right in listening to people like Loaded Crisis when they say this mod could come to console. It could. But the chances of that, I would say right now, are around 2%. I'm not just pulling that number out my arse. I honestly do believe that, and here's why. I told you guys almost exclusively first about this coming to the game. I gave you all the information about Atlas, and I've been telling you for months now that this isn't a Snail Games, this is Studio Wildcard. It is in fact going to be their 1.5 sequel to ARK coming out next year. How do I know this? I have sources. I'm going to be talking about Atlas in another video, so I'm not going to go into it too much. But this is what Studio Wildcard are going to be working on much more and more. And they're already working on it, as you can clearly see. In fact, a lot of this has been worked on while they've been working on Extinction. Extinction has been headed up by a new developer, Chris Willoughby. He got employed a little while ago, do believe, or bumped up, and so he's been the lead engineer of Extinction for a while. That's why we don't see Jeremy or Jesse on Twitter or social media that much talking about Extinction, because they don't have that much input into it. Sure, they've been doing it and they have been helping out and working on it, but this is what they've actually been working on. So earlier I mentioned Loaded Crisis, and this is the reason why, because if you go through his videos over the last 18 months, you'll see nothing but clickbait talking about these mods are coming to console. The next official mod for PC and console. Really? When did that actually happen, Loaded Crisis, eh? And then there's me next to it showing you guys a few weeks later that mods probably don't have that much of a chance of coming to console. A lot of that info came from the way that I'd spoken to developers and other modders about how much power and necessity it takes to really get mods running. Structures Plus is the best example of this. Building in ARK is a huge thing. It generates millions and millions of views across people showing their creations. I've shown you guys world tours highlighting everything that you can be done on an Xbox or PS4. There's so many talented people that do loads of building on console. One of the things they've always wanted, and I think would be a good addition, would be Structures Plus. Now, it did get mentioned, as I said, at TwitchCon last year, and then radio silence. Nothing was mentioned until recently when they put a tiny little post saying that it wouldn't actually be coming now, maybe possibly even until next year, if at all. This was on the Survive the Ark forums, you can go and find the post for yourself. But basically, Structures Plus hasn't been worked on in a while for console, and it doesn't look like it's a priority. Extinction is the priority, and then Atlas is going to be the next priority. Ark has been doing TLC updates, or they did do a few TLC updates, and they were quite late. They was originally meant to be coming with launch. We was meant to get all the adjustments and fixes, making old dinosaurs better looking. That was all meant to happen at launch, but of course it got pushed back because they were desperately trying to get the game in a good stable state. And then we were told it would come after Aberration that we would get the first TLC update. And they did. We got it just after Christmas, and then we got a second one a few months later. TLC 3 was officially confirmed that it wasn't going to be worked on until after release of Extinction, if at all. And actually they didn't even say after Extinction, they said indefinitely for the foreseeable future, and maybe looked on a possibly after Extinction. So no guarantees. So Wildcard have got a new game they're working on, Atlas. They possibly may want to do lots of fixes. We know from Aberration releasing that there was a huge amount of problems with it, and it took 6 weeks to get it back into a really good state. So if Extinction launches obviously next week and it's going to be loads of problems with it, then that's another game that's going to need lots of updates maybe. Even if it's working perfectly, we do know that Wildcard are going to be working on Atlas, so I can't see them putting any more time into TLC, or I can't see them putting any time into sponsored mods. Abstraction Games are the people responsible for Ark on PS4 and Nintendo Switch. They've done everything for the PS4, they've also helped out with development of the game to get optimised on consoles and even on Xbox too. This company does a big job of porting over games. They're getting more and more popular because of the work they did in getting, which was pretty much an achievement, Ark on console, particularly on the PS4. And they've got it on the Switch now, which is an even bigger accomplishment. Yes, it was on Xbox, but it was in a really poor state and it took a lot of work and effort to get it stable on the Xbox. Now, we know the game's not stable, I'm not saying that at all, but Abstraction are getting popular. They're not necessarily going to always have the time or the future space to make time for putting more ports into Ark. There's going to be a cut-off point where Studio Wildcard are saying that we're not going to work on Ark anymore because the game is so many years old. By now, most people who have bought Ark are going to buy Ark. You're not necessarily going to get a bunch of people going out and buying the game next year. 3 years after release, diminishing returns mean it's not business financial sense to put money into porting over mods. And this is the main crutch of my argument. This is why we won't see these mods come to console. It doesn't make sense. Ark is already losing its player base. Numbers have dwindled a lot on online servers. And while everyone's getting hyped for Extinction, including me, and we'll all be jumping on that bandwagon again, it's not going to be as big as the Aberration, I don't think, and I don't think it's going to necessarily put Ark back as the #1 survival game out there. They've dropped project after project. They've dropped Primitive Plus. It never received any more support. The game is broken as fuck on Xbox One and PS4. If you try playing Primitive Plus, it is in a rough state. Even on PC, it's in a rough state because they haven't updated stuff in months. The saddle's out of date. There's all sorts of problems wrong with that game. They stopped developing Ragnarok. Ragnarok was meant to have a bunch of improvements added to it, a bunch of things done to it, but they ended up employing the developers to work on Extinction. And even lately with the whole meshing problem, it's come to pass that maybe it's down to the way the maps are created. So all this leads to the fact that we're not going to get these mods on console because it's going to be either too much time, too much money, and it just doesn't make business sense. The history of dropping projects as well as Primal Survival, the Be a Dino game mode that they was going to be adding in, and Survival the Fittest that never took off on console when it was meant to. That's the history of Studio Wildcard. Starting projects, coming up with good ideas and then dropping them, but without telling us correctly. So I'm happy and excited that these guys won these maps. I still feel that there needs to be more done in talking to the community about whether or not these could come to console and what Wildcard's plans are. If they have won now, instead of just saying, hey, you've won $15,000, how about announcing in the next 2 weeks that this is going to be coming to console? But it won't be. They're working on Extinction, they'll be working on Atlas, and maybe if we're lucky we'll get a TLC Season 3. So it's fantastic for PC users. It means that these games are going to get even more developed, like the mods are going to be developed even more, they'll run better, they'll run smoother, And I guess before I go, I've got to answer the question, why are PC even getting mods? Why are Wildcard doing this process? Why are they still having these competitions? It's because they're still scouting for talent, and there can be lots of things that come from the modding community. So much I've seen from Atlas that's coming up. It looks like it came from the modding community. Ideas, ways that they've made the game. And there's value in keeping half your player base still playing a game. PC is played still a lot more than it is on Xbox and PS4. A lot younger people play it on console, they move on to other games more, whereas PC has a much more stable, reliable fan base. So it pays dividends to make sure that they are kept happy. There's also figures and bonuses attached to being in the top 20 games played on Steam. That happens with investors, it's a big call sign. Some of that stuff is public knowledge, and that's what helps stock shares and stock prices, whereas Xbox and PS4 keep their sales figures and players figures a little bit more private, and they're under no obligation to reveal that stuff. So this is why mods are still a big deal. Keep your most loyal fan base, the half that play the game the most happy, keep them playing your game until the next big release, which would be Atlas or Arc 2, and you've got more chance of them buying that game, getting into that game, because they've always been keeping up to date, keeping entertained with the mods that you've provided. But for console players, this competition is just pointless. So the future of console mods is not looking great. Despite this good news, take it with a pinch of salt. Don't believe any YouTubers, load of crisis, when he says they're going to be coming to console. Challenge him on it. Talk to him. Any other tubers that want to talk about it. Wait until we get some official word from Wildcard that they're going to be actively promoting or trying to get this on console. I think we're all going to be waiting a very long time for that news. I am Jade Plays Games. I am absolutely a downer on this occasion, but I'm trying to keep it real and trying to keep the hype to a minimum where I can. I am hyped about Extinction. There's lots of good stuff coming with that. I really want to get to grips with it, and I really hope Wildcard have taken time to develop the game and make sure it's not a buggy mess like Aberration was. Until then, make sure you've liked this video. Help me out, guys. If you want to know more, you want to talk to me more, drop a comment down below if you agree or disagree with me, and I'll see you rat bags very soon.